What is failure to you, James?
I prefer to think of failure as mistakes, as things that you perhaps have done that you could have done better, that you can learn from. It's probably similar in parenting to the corporate environment, actually. If there's something that needs to be owned up, to make sure that people feel safe enough to do it. So there's no recrimination or, okay, we are where we are now let's deal with it.
What establishes trust between yourselves and as teams,
Yes.
but also from the point of view of the CEO, trusting the connected ecosystem?
The deliberate strategy to empower people. With empowerment comes accountability. I think the other critical one is authentic leadership. People need to know where you stand, what you're thinking about something, so that they can trust you and your reaction to different things, and that's not built up in one interaction. When something wasn't as planned or was a big disappointment, to say you can do better. You know, you've got all the skills, you've got the talent you need. So don't treat this as a big setback. Treat it as something to learn from, and we move on.
Today, my guest is James Formby, a leader who has made a remarkable contribution to South Africa's banking landscape as former CEO of RMB and incoming chairman of Pick n Pay, one of South Africa's leading retail chains. He joins us to discuss how navigating immense challenges has been key to his monumental success. James, welcome to Cheers to Failure.
Thank you very much, Nonto.
Thank you for making it. I know that you've been traveling and life has been busy.
It has, but it's good to be here.
Yeah, I'm delighted you're here. So to kick us off, we were
Yes.
having a conversation offline
Yes.
about the topic of failure.
Yes.
What made you say yes to doing this podcast, knowing the conversation is about failing?
I was quite intrigued by the topic. Most people want to talk about other things like successes and
It's an easier conversation.
It's
to
an
have.
easier conversation.
Yeah.
So when I saw that, Cheers to Failure, I was quite intrigued. So it was
Yeah.
lovely to be able to come and join you today.
Yeah, brilliant. What is failure to you, James? How do you define it?
I prefer to think of failure as mistakes, as things that you perhaps have done that you could have done better, that you can learn from. So rather than think of failure as something that there's no coming back from, I just see it as learning experiences along a journey, and we all make mistakes often.
Yeah. Growing up, has that definition changed? Because I know the more one is exposed to what life is,
Yes.
and you are you mature beyond your 20s, you mature in your
Yes.
journey as a leader, I'm sure you've had to adjust some of what you thought about failure early days to what you are now.
Yeah, I would say so. I think as you mature, you become a little bit more resilient. You realize that setbacks are just that, setbacks, or that you can come back from, that you can do more, you learn from and grow from. So while they disappointing at the time, it's still something that has a, if you like, a positive feature to it.
Yeah. Is there a failure in your younger days that was catastrophic then, and you look back and you're like, as the 25-year-old version of James, and how you reacted to that failure? Now you're like, in the bigger scheme of things, actually, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back into that. In a fairly early part of my career at RMB, I remember, on an advisory assignment. It was one of the earlier ones I was leading myself, but I missed something. I missed a key point, in which made the transaction much more difficult to implement. And I realized it along the way. Fortunately, before the transaction had kind of progressed too far, but I then had to tell the client, I had to apologize, I had to bear with their frustration, that their anger at it.
Yeah.
But I guess it taught me, you have to confront it. The quicker you do, the better. It was hard to face up to them and to say, look, I'm sorry, but actually what I said before was incorrect. I missed this point. But then at least from there, okay, they weren't happy, but we had it out in the open and we could deal with it.
Yeah. If you were to think about how you gathered courage to own up to that mistake,
yes,
what process did you go through to prepare yourself? Because I can imagine, one, it is just the shock that you found yourself making this mistake, and two, the significance of it in terms of the bigger transaction.
Yes. I guess one has to find that courage, and you have to think it through. I think there was a very sort of agonizing day the day before to kind of say, okay, I've got to meet with them. I've got to own up to this and tell them and explain to them. And I think you've just got to sort of draw every bit of courage in to tackle it and to raise it and to deal with it. The longer it goes undealt with, the worse.
The worse. So, and do you apply the same to your parenting? Because I've said to my kids, the earlier you tell the truth about wherever you are struggling as my child, the sooner we can do something about it.
Absolutely.
Because again, the same psychological fear gets in the way. How have you navigated that in terms of getting your kids to realize that owning up early is important for support?
I think one has to create the safety, and it's probably similar in parenting to the corporate environment, actually. The safety not to if there's something that needs to be owned up, to make sure that people feel safe enough to do it. So there's no recrimination or, okay, we are where we are now. Now let's deal with it. Let's not try and, as long as you understand that it was the wrong thing to do and now correct it. That's the important thing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Let's talk about failures you may have encountered in the recent years in your CEO role. Is there one moment where you thought, whether it is with the culture of the organization you lead or delivering results or innovation, are there like moments and pockets of challenges that you've navigated in your recent years, and what has that taught you?
I think in my CEO role, the challenges come from all sides, and the challenge, I guess, in that kind of role is by the time the issues have reached you, they are already someone else has probably tried to deal with it in some way and not been successful or knows it needs to be escalated. So they're always much more difficult to resolve. I think that and maybe to give an example, around the time of the collapse of the Steinhoff empire, the group had different exposures to different parts of that chain, and so it needed a lot of quick thought as to to understand where we were and also how we needed to deal with it. And for me, in taking on something like that, what was really needed was a good team around with different people focusing on different aspects of the challenge, the issue, to start thinking it through and to bring different minds together repeatedly to try and think it through and to try and solve what needed to be done, because it was fluid and there was lots of stuff that we needed to understand, uncover, think through in different dimensions of that. So to have a close group of trusted people that could come together and were prepared to spend the hours and do what it took was really critical.
What establishes trust and confirms trust in a dynamic like that? Because I'm imagining there's a lot at stake.
Yes.
There's a lot that's out of yours and your leadership team's control.
Yes.
And you can't be in everything as the CEO.
Absolutely
you can't be in everything.
No.
So what establishes trust between yourselves and as teams, but also from the point of view of the CEO trusting the connected ecosystem?
Yeah. So I think this has been part of RMB's success is a deliberate strategy to empower people, and with empowerment comes accountability. So people know they're accountable, but they know they have the mandate to make decisions and make calls, and where they're feeling uncomfortable to ask for guidance and for input. So I think that's one dimension. I think the other critical one is authentic leadership. People need to know where you stand, what you're thinking about something, so that they can trust you and your reaction to different things, and that's not built up in one interaction, and that's why I think teams that have been together for a bit of time are so powerful, because they don't need to ask or to worry about what this or that person might think, because there's trust that they each have each other's backs, and that's the power of a team, and that, so trust, we always say, it's earned, it's built, it's not there on day one, and I think that is critical in building teams that are trusting and therefore able to come together when there are times of crisis.
Yeah. And for you, where did you go to ground yourself, to get guidance as James?
Yes.
Because sometimes we don't realize the stress that, people in your position go through.
Yes.
I don't know if you have a therapy sessions every Monday.
No.
You sit down with your coach, but how do you actually just deal with helping you mentally be strong and to face the challenge of the next thing? Yeah.
So in those kind of crisis situations, for me, it was always important to have people in the organization I could trust and talk to, and they were both within my team, so my direct reports, but also those that I reported to. I felt that I could be completely comfortable and open and use them as a sounding board. So when your managers are not trying to be your boss, but actually trying to be a sounding board to you, to give you guidance and give some of their thoughts, it changes the dynamic completely. It becomes, we talked about safe spaces, it becomes a safe space to engage and to try and explore and think through different issues. I've been asked by a couple of people what the difference is between a sponsor and a mentor. Yes. How would you define sponsors versus mentors? Explain the difference in as far as you've used them and been one to someone else, I can imagine. And again, we saw this, and this was something that was a continual debate inside organizations, and I think it should be. So a sponsor is someone who deliberately supports someone to make them succeed, it backs them, so if there's a role or an opportunity, pushes them to take it and sort of supports them to do that. A mentor is someone who is often a little bit more distant, perhaps, someone who maybe isn't in the direct sort of circle of that person, but who can act as that trusted sounding board, who can engage to give wisdom and to help work with someone to confront their challenges, but in a way that's a little bit separate, if you like, from the direct day-to-day thrust of a manager, of a team dynamic, or a sort of employee manager type role. I've seen, and I do still mentor people. I've seen that is a very powerful role that can be played effectively to help people. Often it's just to play back their thoughts to them in a way that's more structured, or to give people the confidence and belief to take on an opportunity, or to take a bit of a chance. I'm a huge fan in supporting mentorship, and I think it can, if properly structured within organizations, can unlock an enormous amount, because there are a lot of people, more experienced people, who actually want to give back and who get enormous fulfillment out of doing it. So it's a win-win. Mentors learn and benefit as much as mentees.
And when have you seen mentorship fail, in terms of how the one you are mentoring is leveraging or not leveraging the relationship? Because for me, for example, I always say to people, don't look to acquire multiple mentors. Because when I look at messages I get on LinkedIn, it's like people are just wanting to rattle off 10 names of people that mentor them versus having that one or two good mentors that go deep in the journey and seeing how their careers are evolving.
I agree with you on that. I think the investing deeply in a mentorship relationship is powerful, and I also think it can be informal or formal. Often, if it's slightly more formal, it can be a little bit more structured, which can help. So I think it fails when either the mentee doesn't engage or truly try to leverage the guidance, the wisdom, or is listening to too many voices, and then just becomes paralyzed by the different views. And so, yes, I agree with you. Not too many mentors may actually be more confusing. It's best to choose a few and focus on that.
And the sponsor adding most value if they are in the organization where one works? Or can a sponsor, according to your experience, be from a different organization compared to where the individual that's been supported works?
In my experience, typically it's within the organization.
Mine too.
And I think, there are examples where it may be more visible, and in other cases a little bit less visible, where someone is supporting but quite maybe a little more distantly, but that sponsorship I'm typically seen inside sort of corporate structures.
Let's talk about vulnerability
and
failure as a teacher. I find failure teaches us to be vulnerable. What's your experience with that? When are there moments where you've had to lean into vulnerable leadership in a moment that is challenging, so that you can galvanize support and get people's understanding of what's going on in that moment?
I do think that by admitting that one doesn't know what the answers or solutions are, and therefore inviting ideas and good thinking, or even suggesting a possible course of action, but then inviting for others, it's a dimension of vulnerable leadership, which I think is very, very powerful. I've always believed that the best solutions come from challenge, from debate on alternatives, and so. Rather than projecting as a leader that you know the answers, to make sure that you have ideas, but you're open to different courses of action, and is so much more powerful. I mean, it just sort of makes me think a little bit of the COVID period, and how tricky that was. Banks were feeling vulnerable. Our clients were feeling vulnerable. They didn't know how long the lockdowns were going to be, what their income was going to be, or their losses. And so by working and partnering and saying, none of us know, let's just deal with what we can for now and keep going. And these are the different alternatives. Let's play with them. We all don't know how this is going to unfold. Is powerful, and that's where I think if teams have leaders that are open to debate and challenge, you can get a lot more accomplished.
So I'm smiling because in the company I work for, Momentum, debates is encouraged, and lots of debates. But that was new to me before entering the
and
Momentum
maybe
ecosystem.
Momentum obviously was part of this,
R&B,
and I've always grown
strange.
up in an organization that actually values debate.
Values
debate until a decision's made. Then once the decision's made, we can't go back and keep having the same debate over and over again. But to get to a decision, to a view, the debate is powerful, and to invite different views and perspectives from people who think quite differently. Though sometimes they get quite robust, the debates, but actually it's healthy. It's good.
Have you witnessed, if you look at a team you're leading, dynamics where people are not being honest with the feedback? Say there is a plan that's being proposed, and in the spirit of robust feedback and robust debates, when you observe that people are just holding back, or if they talk to you on the corridor, they tell you what they are disagreeing with. But in the formal setup where a meeting is being had and feedback is being solicited, they are not as forthcoming. How do you, that can really come in the way of getting good results.
I agree.
How do you encourage somebody who holds back but finds a moment offline to kind of give share their thoughts?
I put this into the category of politics, politics in this context is a cancer inside organizations. When people will tell you one thing privately but won't say it publicly, and if you know it privately, you can expose them by saying you invite their opinion and say, "I know you think like this. What do you want to say?" to bring it out into the table, onto the table, But if people aren't going to be honest and are playing political games for whatever reason and aren't prepared in an environment that values challenge to come out with it, those are the type of people I would typically, push to the edge of my trusted group. Sometimes you see those kind of people, but I really much prefer understanding, people who are prepared to challenge, who'll come out with their views. That's good, even if I disagree. In fact, one of the things I did as R&B CEO, whenever there was always open questions, if we had a session, and any question was up for any question. So people could ask whatever they liked, and there was no question that I wasn't going to answer. I may not be able to answer it fully for whatever reasons, but I would give my best shot at it, because that's the way that people understand what's going on. It's much better.
And what would you say is maybe the right type of languaging? Because I think with disagreements, how you disagree is also important.
Absolutely.
The kind of language you use, and almost like the energy you bring, because people can sense your intention before you speak. What makes for productive debates and in terms of one's behavior?
Yeah, and from your momentum days, we always said the business case prevails. So you've got to focus on what the numbers, on what the business requires, as opposed to, if you like, so if people are playing to the issues and not to the person, as soon as it strays and it becomes a topic that's not what related to personality or issues like that, the whole debate changes. By focusing on the hard issues, on the numbers, on the business and what the business needs, and obviously there's always a bit of grayness there. It's not only the numbers, it's the people and all of that, but by doing that and not playing the person, then I think you can keep a constructive debate. As soon as it varies, moves into the personality argument, then you can go astray.
Let's talk about the role of your inner circle.
Yes.
When you've been leading and navigating challenging times.
Yes.
What roles do you have that are important to surround you?
Yes.
And what kind of support do you get from those characters?
Yeah, so I think it's vital to have a close team, people that you've worked with for a bit, that you trust, to engage on, and it'll be for different issues. It may be different people. So if it's a human resources or personal, an issue with people, then I'd go to the human capital person, and we'd solve that together. So you choose the issues, but you do need a close team that you can know that you can rely on, and that will give you great input on any given topic. And I think the importance of cohesive teams at a group level, at to lead organizations, is actually often maybe underestimated a bit. The power of having people like that come together, that trust each other, that aren't sensitive about who you went to, who you asked to work with you on a particular topic. That's extremely powerful for organizations. It's when the teams keep changing, or the teams have issues with each other, or members of the teams have issues with each other, that quite quickly you get factions, and organizations you can see suffer quite quickly once that starts to happen.
Yeah. Given the positions you hold,
yes,
some of the failures and challenges, I guess, that you have dealt with, and you are still to deal with, will be talked about in a very public way.
Yes.
Whether it's a journalist who covers the performance of the organization, or whatever is going on.
Yes.
How do you balance that need to come across as being a successful leader with the reality of the fact that there are things you don't know, there are decisions that you've made that might not bring about the results that you've committed? How do you kind of balance that expectation?
Yeah, I think you have to be honest about what may not be working. If something that you try wasn't hugely successful or disappointed, then you say, well, we thought this might be the case, but we've given it a bit of time, and we've now decided to do the following. And so by saying this didn't work out according to plan, or it wasn't as good as we'd hoped, I think is okay. Hopefully, there are other good things that offset and balance it.
Yeah, but we're realizing more and more that the public values transparency and honesty.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter how bad, as long as there is transparency that this is the problem. Here's
Yeah.
how big the problem is,
Yeah.
and here's how soon it might be solved, or how
Yeah.
long it might take to
Yes.
solve.
And a great example now in the Pick and Pay context with Sean has been very open about that, about what he is trying to do to bring the core retail business back to profitability, and exactly how long he expects it to take. He's been quite clear with that, and that's something that we've spoken about as a team, as a board, and support him hugely on doing that, so that everyone understands where we're at, and also what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, one of my favorite sayings I used to work at SA Breweries for years, and there was a saying that one sales manager used to say, make reality your friend.
Yes.
If you start at a point where you are not, because some of us, I mean, we want to sugarcoat.
Yes.
We want to look at the problem with rosy-tinted glasses. And sometimes we are not that, I guess, brutal in saying this is our reality, and therefore let's roll up our sleeves, because the extent of effort is that much more deeper.
Yes, and I've seen that in many of the businesses, that have started to run into financial trouble in my advisory days, is that there's often a failure to confront the brutal reality. That's, in fact, part of the problem. And that once you do confront the brutal reality is when you truly start to realize what you need to do to fix it. And so, that's been a learning that I've gained over the years, and overseeing and in seeing what's happened to businesses that have run into financial trouble. And I think, again, coming back to Pick and Pay, clearly what in this case they are trying to make sure that the full brutal reality is confronted in order to solve and to really restore the business to sustainable profit.
Yeah. So let's talk to young Jameses
Yes.
who are watching this podcast.
Yeah.
What would you advise them in terms of how they perceive failure? They are finishing, or they've just finished their articles. They're about to, even follow a career, get into banking.
Yes.
What would be the 3 things you say they should know if they are seeking to achieve the level of success you've achieved?
Yeah, so definitely, if things don't go right, they don't go according to plan, don't dwell on them or get lost in a spiral about the negative side of these. They treat them as learning experiences. Make sure that you pick yourself up, that you've got the resilience to keep on fighting to improve, and to say, if something didn't go right, I'm going to do what I can to fix it, or I'm going to make the following changes, and next time it won't happen. I'll make sure that it doesn't happen again. And I guess that's all we can do as humans, whether you're sort of young and just leaving articles or school, or whether you're in your 50s and you're dealing with different corporate issues.
Yeah. And to dads, as a father,
yes,
how should a young dad help their kids navigate failure?
Yeah, I think you need to give your kids the support, the encouragement, to make sure that when something wasn't as planned or was a big disappointment, to say you can do better. You've got all the skills, you've got the talent you need. So don't treat this as a big setback. Treat it as something to learn from, and we move on.
Yeah.
That's all one can do.
Yeah, beautiful. On that note, thank you to James Formby. Treat it as an experience to learn from. Cheers to failure. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please won't you do me a favor? Click the subscribe button as well as the notifications button so you know when we've got new content on our YouTube channel. And share it with your friends, whoever you believe needs to know that failure doesn't mark the end, but is filled with beautiful, glorious lessons we all need to have. Thank you.